One of the things that I really love about Christianity is the Jewish tradition behind it, because it helps us understand 2/3 of the Bible is the Old Testament or the Hebrew scriptures. And the way they understand it, their thought process was totally different than ours. So the first thing you need to know is that in the Hebrew mind, it wasn't how do we follow the process and get to the answer. It wasn't a linear thing like that. It was more of what my Hebrew instructor used to call the riddle in the middle, where you would start with the thing at the top, and then you would work your way down, and in the middle would be the real key of what you were trying to say, and then it would work its way back out. So it created like bookends that came in and in and in until you understood what the author was trying to say. The riddle in the middle. That's what was always the answer. And so in trying to teach Hebrew children and adults, they realized the point wasn't about coming to the right answer. It's not like the answer is always Jesus, right? The answer is God is deeper than we can understand. Now, when we understand that Jesus is the one who shows us God in the flesh, that's a different picture, isn't it? So there is a type of writing that I fell in love with called Midrash. I'm going to share with you some Midrash that was written for children. It's called, Does God Have a Big Toe? But I'm going to start with the author's note. One way to understand a story is to have someone explain it to you. They will probably say, listen to me, this is what this story means. And then they will tell you something. That is one way to understand the Bible, but I don't think it's a very good way. The person who explains the story might be wrong. And in any event, explaining stories from the Bible only makes sense if there is just one right way to understand that story. But the stories in the Bible are so rich and deep and packed with thousands of different meanings that they cannot be explained in just one right way. The best way to understand a story in the Bible is to make up another story about it. And that is what I have done in this book. In this book, I've written new stories about the old stories in the Bible. Each of my stories is a way to understand the Bible stories a little better. Each of my stories is a way of trying to answer some question about that story in the Bible, but I never really tell you what question I'm trying to answer. That would be too much like an explanation. Jews and Christians and Muslims have been writing stories about stories in the Bible for a very long time. I am a Jew and I am a rabbi. In my tradition, the people who write stories about stories in the Bible are called darashim. And the stories they write about the stories in the Bible are called midrashim. Now, one of the things you should know about Hebrew is when you put ayim like that at the end, it means plural, right? A midrash is a Jewish name for a story about a story in the Bible. There are collections of old midrashim written by old rabbis and darashim, and I have learned from them. But the stories in this book are new. They are a modern midrashim. I am not exactly sure of all the ways they are different and all the ways they are the same as the old midrashim. It doesn't matter. What matters is that it's a way that the love of Bible shines forth and lifts up children and their parents and whispers to them, listen to the words of the Bible. Listen to them with your ears and your heart and your mind and your soul. That is from the author, Mark Gellman. And many of the illustrations are from Oscar de Mejo. So the first one is called Partners. Before there was anything, there was God. A few angels and a huge swirling glob of rocks and water with no place to go. The angels asked God, why don't you clean up this mess? So God collected the rocks from the huge swirling glob and put them together in clumps and said, some of these clumps of rocks will be planets. and some will be stars, and some of these rocks will be, well, just rocks. Then God collected water from the huge swirling glob and put it together in pools of water and said, some of these pools of water will be oceans, and some will become clouds, and some of this water will be just water. And then the angel said, well, God, it's neater now, but is it finished? And God answered, nope. On some of the rocks, God placed growing things and creeping things and things that only God knows what they are. And when God had done all of this, the angels asked God, is the world finished now? And God answered, nope. God made a man and a woman from some of the water and dust and said to them, I'm tired now. Please finish up the world for me. Really, it's almost done. But the man and the woman said, we can't finish the world alone. You have the plans and we are too little. You're big enough, God answered them. But I agree to this. If you keep trying to finish the world, I will be your partner. The man and the woman asked, what's a partner? And God answered, a partner is someone you work with on a big thing that neither of you can do alone. If you have a partner, it means you can never give up because your partner is depending on you. On the days you think I'm not doing enough, and on the days you think you are not doing enough, even on those days, whether you think I'm not, or I think you are not, even on those days, we are still partners, and we must not stop trying to finish the world. Then that's a deal, and they all agreed to that deal. The angels then asked God, is the world finished yet? And God answered, I don't know. Go ask my partners. And that's a midrash about the creation. It's not really the story of the creation. It's to cause you to ask questions about the creation. And questions are where we really learn, isn't it? The next one is called Adam's Animals. God made and named almost everything in the world. God made and named heaven. God made and named earth. God made and named the sun and the moon and the stars and the waters. God made and named almost everything. God even made and named the first man, Adam, which means red earth because God made man first out of red earth. But God did not name the animals. God thought, I want Adam and Adam's children to protect and care for these animals. Maybe if I let Adam name the animals, he will get to know them better and really take care of them. Do you take really good care of a pet? And don't you always want to give it a name? And you want it to be your name, don't you? A name you have picked. Well, when Adam heard that he could name the animals, he was so happy. He ran right over to a brown furry with teeth who was sleeping under a tree and yelled into its ear, I'm going to name you. The brown furry with teeth opened one eye, yawned, and went back to sleep. Very soon, Adam realized he didn't know what to name the brown furry with teeth, or for that matter, any of the other animals. Adam sat down on the sleeping brown furry with teeth to think up a plan for naming the animals. Suddenly it came to him, I know, I will give each animal a number. That way, when I want to call the animal, I can just call its number. Adam looked down at the brown furry with teeth, lifted up its ear, and screamed, you are number one. The brown furry with opened one eye, yawned, and went back to sleep. Adam spent the rest of that day numbering the animals. He gave numbers to slimy swimmers with no fins, fuzzy hoppers with twitchy noses, squeaky flyers with colored feathers, chirping swiggers with curly tails, speedy crawlers with tiny feet, scaly swimmers with red eyes, and a whole bunch of gray and black and white furries with teeth who looked like they were related to number one. In the late afternoon, somewhere between the numbering of tiny sand diggers and the swarming wood eaters, Adam lost count. He plopped down again on the big furry with teeth to think of a new plan for naming the animals. After a time, Adam decided, I will call the animals, Hey You. That way, when I need an animal, I will only have to remember one name. The next day, Adam went to the big red rock, needed a big red rock moved out of his way. He wanted the large, gray, wrinkled, long-nosed, big-eared, white-tusked, tree-eating stomper for the job, so he yelled out, Hey You! Come over here and move this rock. But instead of the large, gray, wrinkled up, long-nosed, big-eared, white-tusked, tree-eating stomper, a rather small, quite noisy, banana-eating, chirping swinger hopped on top of the rock and began eating a banana. Adam was quite discouraged and returned to the brown furry with teeth to think of a new plan for naming the animals, but this time, nothing came to him. Then the brown furry woke up, shook Adam into the nearby brush, growled a huge growl, looked at Adam in the eye and said, "Listen to me. With all your talking, you never once thought to ask us, the animals, what we would like to be named. Why don't you try that?" Now, I don't know what you call the skinny, hairless, red earth footwalker like you, but they call me a bear. So Adam asked the animals what they wanted to be called, and you know what? They told him. What do you think? Are you liking Midrash so far? All of these have questions you can ask, don't they? Especially if you go back and you read the Bible story, and then you come and read these and you find out what's different about them and what's the same. I want to hear all of your good questions. The next one is called The First New Year. When Adam was first put in the Garden of Eden, he was amazed at everything. The smell of the flowers made him dance. The sound of the birds made him sing for joy. But all of the things that amazed Adam in the garden, by far the most amazing thing was the sun. The sun was so far away and he could not touch it, and yet it warmed his face as if it were close. Imagine Adam's surprise when the sun sank right down beyond the edge of the garden and disappeared. Adam did not notice the sinking of the sun until it had already sunk, and then everything turned dark and cold. Adam was afraid, and so were the animals. They all crowded around him and tried to look brave, but none of them looked very brave, shivering through the first cold night. After a while, Adam fell asleep, but later he was awakened by a warm feeling on the back of his neck. He whirled around and saw the sun peeking over the other side of the garden. Adam did not understand how the sun was able to sneak around and come up the other side of the Garden of Eden, but he was happy the sun was in the sky again and he was not cold. Adam tried to reassure all of the animals that the sun was back to stay, but after some time, they came rushing over to Adam. "It's sinking again, lower and lower in the sky. Let's build something to stop the sun from sinking," they said. So the animals scurried around, piling stuff at just the spot where the sun sank. They hoped that the sun would hit their pile of junk and stop at the edge of the Garden of Eden just before it sank, and everything got cold again. The monkey piled bananas, and the elephant piled tree trunks, and the squirrel piled nuts, and the pile of stuff rose high over the wall that surrounded the Garden of Eden. But then the sun just sank right behind all that stuff, and it was dark again and cold again, and the animals were frightened again, and so was Adam. Then God explained to Adam that the sun would sink again and again and again, and that there was nothing he or the animals could do to stop it. But God also said there was nothing to worry about, because every few hours the sun would rise again over the other side of the garden. God explained to Adam that separating the sinking and rising and sinking separating the sinking and rising and sinking of the sun was something called time. And God explained to Adam that the time from one sun sinking to another sun sinking was 1 day. And the time of 7 suns sinking was 1 week. And the time of 4 weeks of sun sinkings was a month. And the time of 12 months sinking was a year. Do you understand? God asked Adam. Sure, said Adam, who actually had no idea what God was talking about. What Adam thought was, after 1 day, I'm all right because I still have 6 others before the week is over. And after the week is over, I'm okay because I still have 3 other weeks until the month is over. And then I have 11 other months to use up. So Adam went about working his work in the Garden of Eden. Days and weeks and months went by. And Adam marked them all, but did not think much of it until one day Adam noticed that 11 months and 3 weeks and 6 days had been used up. Then it hit him. I've used up all of time. What am I going to do now? Tonight the sun will sink and it will never rise again because this is the end of time. Am I going to have to wander around in the dark and is it going to be cold all the time? Am I going to trip over things? Oh Lord, what will I do now? On that last day of the last week of the last month of the year, Adam said goodbye to the animals at the Garden of Eden. He called them together near the big tree in the middle of the garden and said, I don't know if I will see you tomorrow because I don't know if there's going to be a tomorrow. Before the sun sinks for the last time, I wanted you to all know that you were good friends. If I did anything to hurt you in any way, I'm sorry and I hope you will forgive me. The animals hugged Adam and each other and bunched up together because they figured that they would soon be cold, and they cried a little as they watched the sun sink for the last time behind the edge of the garden. And then, after a while, the sun peeped up over the other side of the garden, just as it had every morning the first year. A new day had begun. It was the first day of the second year. Then Adam heard God counting. 10 years is 1 decade, and 10 decades is 1 century, and 10 centuries is 1 millennium, and 10 millennia is, but by this time, Adam had fallen asleep. When Adam woke up, he smelled the flowers, heard the birds singing, and thanked God for making time way big enough. Now, the next one is the man who loved a tree. Adam was the only person ever in the whole wide world who never had a mom or dad. When you are the first person, nobody came before you. That's what it means to be the first person. But being the first person caused some big problems for Adam and for God. Adam had nobody to feed him, so God made Adam old enough to feed himself. Adam had nobody to teach him, so God made Adam smart enough to teach himself. Adam had nobody to kiss him, but God did not know how to solve that problem right away. Very soon, Adam turned lonely, and before God could figure out what to do, Adam took a liking to a big old fruit tree in the middle of the Garden of Eden. Of course, that big old tree didn't say a word to Adam, but Adam spoke to the tree as if it were his best friend. He would say, "Hiya, tree. How you doing, tree? Great day today, tree. Want a drink of water, tree?" Adam sat in the shade of the tree during the heat of the day. He slept and curled up around the tree every night. He would listen for hours to the sound of wind rushing through its leaves. God was not happy about Adam's friendship with the tree. God wanted Adam to pick a living, breathing, moving around pal, not a stuck in the mud covered with bark and bugs pal. So God hurried and made Eve and brought Eve to Adam, expecting, of course, they would become best friends right away. Adam liked Eve, but he liked the tree better. In fact, Adam loved that tree. Eve is too soft. She doesn't have any bark or leaves or fruit, he thought. Eve did her best to get Adam to love her. She would put leaves in her hair, twigs in her ears, fruit in her nose, all to make herself more beautiful in Adam's eyes. But Adam still loved the tree. God tried to help Eve by telling Adam that he couldn't eat any more fruit from that tree, but that didn't help. Adam would sit under the tree, looking up at the fruit and sighing. Eve decided that God was not going to solve her problem. So she went to the snake, who told her to eat the fruit from the tree and give some to Adam, and then everything would be all right. The next day, when Adam woke up, there was Eve sitting next to him and holding some of the forbidden fruit she had picked from the tree. Adam couldn't believe it. "Don't you know God told us not to eat that fruit?" But Eve said, "I wanted you to have it because I know how much you love this tree." "You did this for me," said Adam. Eve nodded, and Adam hugged her, and together they ate the fruit. God was happy to get Adam and Eve out of the garden and away from that tree. Outside the garden, Adam and Eve slept curled up around each other, and they kissed. To shade them from the hot sun, Adam planted a fruit tree, and he liked the new tree a lot. but he loved Eve. I wonder how many ways you can think of that story would teach us about why people make mistakes or sin and what we like and what we love. I think there's 1,000 questions in there. These are not stories to give us answers. They're stories to get you to ask really good questions. I want to hear your questions. I want to hear why you think Adam liked the tree but loved Eve, and before he had loved the tree and liked Eve. I'm going to read you a couple more, because all the way around there are so many stories in here. But I'm going to stop for today because I want to hear your questions. So save your questions for me. Let me know what they are, and then we'll see what the next stories are about. In Does God Have a Big Toe?